Ross, thank you for joining us. My first question is, of course, about the Damar Hamlin situation, the devastating injury that we all watched last night on Monday Night Football. I'm wondering what you make of the kind of controversy that's boiled up around this 5-minute warm-up that was announced during that ESPN broadcast, and now the league is pushing back on saying that was never really in the cards, that they were going to go back 5 minutes after the ambulance left the field or whatever that exact time was.
Yeah, fair question. I think the answer I have is I don't really think very much of it at all. I mean, I don't discount that somebody at ESPN was told that, and that maybe someone at some point suggested that. You know, my guess is, as this was unfolding, they thought, all right, after the ambulance leaves, you know, we'll have a 5-minute period to get the guys ready again, then play. But I think as they thought better of it or realized the severity of the situation, I think my guess is that they kind of realized that wouldn't be a good idea. Now, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor kind of know the answer, right? Like, I think Zach Taylor walked across the field and talked to McDermott, and talking about the head coach of the Bengals and Bills, if you're not familiar. And if those guys sort of unilaterally decided this is not a good idea, like, well, our guys cannot play, then that's very different. And then that would put the NFL in a bad spot with the suggestion that, you know, they wanted the guys to try to play.
Ross, have you ever been on the field where something happened to a teammate and you felt it would be inappropriate or difficult to go on playing the game?
Funny that you asked that, Christian, because one time in my career did the ambulance come on the field, and it was 2004, and I was playing for the Bills against the Patriots, actually.
Oh, Edwards?
I was playing center. I don't remember exactly what happened to him, but our right tackle, Mike Williams, had some issue, had some collision, and he was motionless on the ground. And so it became a neck and spine deal, and they brought out the backboard and they brought out the stretcher and everything, and they put him in the ambulance. It's kind of weird, right? Because on the one hand, like, everybody's kind of worried about him, obviously. You're not really seeing him move. And then his wife comes down out of the stands, and we all know his wife, Anisha, and, like, you know these people, right? Like, it's your teammate and friend. What makes that situation unique, I guess, is that the neck and spine thing has become somewhat common to the point where you're almost used to it. But, like, in hindsight, like, what if the guy is paralyzed? You know what I mean? It seems wild in hindsight to be like, okay, yeah, he might be paralyzed, roll him off the field, and then, like, 2 minutes later, you're in the next play. And the wild thing about it is, like, that first play after the ambulance leaves the field feels like you're in slow motion. Doesn't even feel like anybody's moving. And then the second play, it's like everything went totally back to normal, and the guy never got hurt, and the ambulance never left the field. It really is bizarre. I don't think any of us thought we shouldn't continue playing, but I do remember coming off on the sideline and being like, hey, you guys have any updates on Mike? Like, is he moving his legs? Is he moving? You know, I mean, that was a real conversation that happened.
So, Ross, do you feel like this situation might prompt, or should it prompt, any kind of different response then by the league in the way that they continue games after an extremely traumatic injury? This was, you know, I think unprecedented, but to your point, we've seen pretty serious injuries in other contexts within NFL games.
Yeah, well, I think on some level it kind of has to, right? I mean, they postponed a game last night, and they're not going to play it again the rest of this week, or maybe ever, which is something that I'm sure they're considering. So I think on some level the answer is yes, But I don't know. I'm 43 years old. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like this. I've talked to a couple of doctors about it, and they say it's like a lightning strike, right? For the incident that happened with Damar for this cardiac arrest. So unless it's a life or death situation, I kind of think they'll play on, and pretty much life or death situation is the only one I can ever remember. All the other ones are typically neck and spine and potential paralysis situation as opposed to life or death.
Ross, every time there's a big injury like this, I feel like there's always talk of how parents aren't going to let their kids play football now, and eventually there's not going to be any more youth football and stuff like that, and it never really plays out that way. Could this be different, or could this be the start of maybe a more serious discussion of that? Because I feel like this has affected everybody a lot different. There's a lot of people watching that game last night.
Well, I guess, first of all, I would disagree with you. I do think because of the brain injury stuff and the CT and some of that stuff, that youth football participation is down, high school football participation is down, for sure, especially like places like California. There's no question. And the interesting thing about that to me is I always wonder, like, how informed people are, right? Like, I am very informed about it. The head of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which is based there in Boston, is Chris Nowinski, a Harvard football player that I played against. You know, Boston's sort of the hub for CT and brain injuries. And people that say they would never, ever let their kid play football, to me, are almost in the same category as people that act like there's, you know, have their kid play in kindergarten and just, no, they're fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Nothing happened to me. It's fine. You know, either one, I wonder how much research they've really done. I am totally, totally fine with any parent making whatever decision they think is best for their child, as long as they're properly informed. But I kind of feel like both those people, Christian, both those groups aren't really very well informed. I mean, it's about volume of hits to the head over time. So if your child only plays like high school football, the chances of CT or anything like that are very, very minimal. But those people, there's also people that don't acknowledge that there's any issue at all, and they haven't played when they're really young. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, I do think there will be people that, because of what happened last night, will be even more hesitant to have their child play football, even though, based on the multiple doctors I've talked about, that this sensation called, I don't know if it's commotio cordis or commotio cordis, where you take a shot to the chest and it knocks your heart out of rhythm like this and knocks you into cardiac arrest. It's actually more common in like youth baseball and softball. But people won't know that. People won't do the research on that. You know, it was Monday Night Football. It was the biggest Monday Night Football game of the year, and it was really scary. And I'm sure there are going to be people that just associate that with football, even though I would hope they get properly informed against AED at any type of contact sport, any type of ball sport. It seems like it happens more, from what I was reading, with lacrosse or baseball or softball, and actually taking a ball to the chest.
Yeah, there's definitely been at least one documented case recently of that in lacrosse, Ross. And I think we're all struggling trying to get these medical terms out of our mouths and do it correctly, and try not to like reflect too much on what we don't know. I'm wondering, though, from a football perspective, just because we just heard a clip from Bart Scott saying that this was not a hit that should be legal, that T. Higgins, basically the way that he collided with Damar Hamlin should not be a legal football action, or is not at this point in the NFL. Do you agree with any of that? Did you see anything unusual on that play?
Well, I don't know. Bart broke down like frame by frame. I certainly did not. I didn't see anything from the couple times I watched it that looked illegal. or out of the ordinary to me. And I actually thought, Megan, it was the opposite. It's actually more startling to me that it seemed like a relatively routine hit, if that makes sense, right? Like, I actually look at it like, if that can happen from a hit like that, how does it not happen more often? And even what they're telling me about this commotio cordis thing, well, then how does that not happen to boxers more often? That they take a shot to the chest, right when they're about to breathe, or right when their heart's about to pump, and this happens. I'm very confused by how this happens, and none of us have really ever seen it before in the sport of football. And thank goodness it happened in an NFL game where there's like 20 doctors and there's an AED and there's CPR. This happens at a high school game, in Mass or Pennsylvania where I live. It's probably even scarier than it already is.
Ross, before we let you go here, I did just want to ask you about the Patriots. Obviously, this affects them scheduling-wise, but in terms of that Dolphins game, you saw them pull out a win there. They certainly needed it. Any reaction to Mac Jones and the offense, the way the defense handled Teddy Bridgewater, and then the third stringer there? Overall impressions from the Patriots staying alive one more week?
Well, pretty clearly I thought the Duggar pick six and then the injury to Bridgewater changed everything. I don't know that I came away from the game feeling any differently, frankly, about the Patriots offense. Probably feel about the same there. The thing that's interesting to me about the Patriots now is, we talked about this on today's Even Money betting podcast, which is that it seems like there's a decent chance that maybe the NFL would call and declare the game a no contest, which is interesting because I guess on some level then the Bills would be playing for the difference between the 2 seed and the 3 seed against the Patriots. There's a lot of different things going on right now that can affect the level of Bills' importance to win against the Patriots on Sunday if that game happens. Right? Like, if the Bills had lost last night and the Chiefs won on Saturday, then the Bills wouldn't have a whole lot of motivation necessarily against the Patriots on Sunday. Whereas if they declare it like a no contest, which is essentially a tie, then the Bills are 12-3-1, Bengals are 11-4-1. I don't know the tiebreakers, but it would seem to me like the Bills, the Bengals would be locked in to winning the AFC North then, but they'd still, I guess, be playing to try to be the number 2 seed. So the Bills might have to beat the Patriots to be the 2 seed. I'd have to look at that. But it is pretty wild that everything that happened last night could have a big impact on whether or not the Patriots make the playoffs.
All right. Ross Tucker, NFL Odyssey insider and host of the Ross Tucker podcast. Ross, thank you so much for joining us.